Greetings, everybody. Hello, I'm Dr. Nancy Moonstar, host of A Man's Guide to Intimacy 4. This is the fourth time that I'm interviewing experts on a series. And the tagline is, let's talk about sex, the holy grail of intimacy. So we have another interview with someone I've interviewed earlier, who is a coach who's overcome all kinds of conditions beyond what you could imagine, wasn't supposed to live beyond age 7, who helps others overcome, is a spokesperson, a representative of somebody who overcomes all odds. So we welcome PJ Dixon.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me back, Nancy. You know, this is the second interview in this particular series. You interviewed me before, but this is the second time we're interviewing. And the reason is that the first interview was pretty intense. It was talking really to the more assertive aspect of the masculinity. And after I hung up, I felt like it was a really great conversation. But part of me kept thinking, but what about the kinder, gentler man? What about the man who is not as comfortable being direct or assertive, but is still a really good man? Like, how can we communicate some of the same principles and ideas to them so they feel like there's some real deliciousness for them here also, and some real actionable content that they can move into their lives in terms of finding a romantic partner in their lives in a way that they're really looking for. So I appreciate you letting me come back.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to add that we did chat afterwards, and my impression of your first interview was that you were very assertive, which I thought was beautiful. It was a great role model. And I was glad that you understood that not all men are that assertive. And so this is an opportunity for you to work on coaching men into skills if they are reticent, if they consider themselves maybe not an alpha. What's an alpha anyway? Maybe they're a mix. Maybe they hold back somewhat, and they're even scared. So I love the idea that you're stepping up and wanting to share tips for really all men. Any man is going to learn something from you. I know that. And I do like that you're going to also address men who may have some able body or disabled conditions that you can help them with by them being more assertive.
Well, listen, I thank you for the opportunity, and I 100% agree. For me, this comes down to healthy relationships. I really, really want women in the world to have good men in their lives. And look, I don't care if it's same sex or opposite sex. What I'm looking at really is that I want the feminine to be honored and respected by the masculine, and the masculine to be open and receptive to receive the nurturing of the feminine. I want them to recognize that there's a complement here. And I think by being able to communicate to the range, actually, I know that being able to communicate to a range of men allows us to increase the success and the health and the happiness and the joy and the depth of intimacy that really can't be there and should be in all relationships. And it just takes a little bit of like introspection, and really two things: a little introspection, and once you have that epiphany, the courage then to step forward and make the new adjustments. And it doesn't have to be counter to who you are. In fact, if you look at the first interview, I'm coming across a lot more assertive. And this one, you're going to see that I'm a little softer and quieter, because like Nancy said, there you can have a combination. And for me, I have a combination, and I find that it works really well. And it's a game to find the right balance with your particular lady, because every woman is a little bit different. And so it's fun to see what she responds to and what nurtures her sense of intimacy and sexuality.
Nice, nice. My mind went to a place when you were talking just now that men have a lot of responsibility, and for them to step up and help heal the planet, help heal relationship, help women heal their hurts. What would you see as men's responsibility in this bridging the gender gap, the me and the times movements, really contributing and impacting that? How would you word that?
I'm a big advocate of emotional intelligence. And so when a man becomes emotionally intelligent, or anyone for this matter, they're not just aware of their own emotions, but they're aware of how somebody else might be feeling. And they're aware of the subtle, excuse me, the subtle non-verbal expressions that uh, convey a message. And the message often is, I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel like there's an equality here. Maybe not about you, but just in general in their life. And so if a man is able to see that, then he's able to come with a certain level of masculinity and a certain level of compassion and help the woman or anybody who feels a little disenfranchised or a little less than, maybe help them to feel like they matter and that they're valuable in this world, equally valuable as any other person. And so just by pouring into them, by nurturing them with his own power, his own strength, his own kindness, his own gentleness, his own connection, by sharing that with them, then it creates this level of connection. And when there's a level of connection, healing occurs. Because a lot of time, that sense of feeling, I don't want to say broken, but feeling like you're not whole, is healed when you feel connected. And if you look at the word heal, Heal, it comes from the word halo. The word halo means to be whole. And so if we look at connecting, what we're doing is we're reconnecting, we're bringing back that sense of you matter to me and you're part of my tribe, you're part of my group of friends, you're part of my love interest, you're part of the focus in my life that I want to pour some energy and nurturing into, so that that relationship is healthy and strong, and so that you feel important and you feel like you matter. A really good man makes everybody in the room feel like they matter, makes everybody in the room feel like he's listening and paying attention to them, makes them feel like he has something, some kind of authority, some kind of internal power, some kind of internal charisma that he's willingly just giving to them, sharing with them, that he doesn't have something above them, but what he does have inside of him, he's sharing with others and making them feel like they matter too.
So I love this idea of connecting, and a man may not even understand the power that he has to affirm a woman.
Mm.
Bring us in with some real basic communication, some words that guys who might be saying, that's great. Now, how do I do that? And can you break it down for me?
Sure. I think that if we're just talking basic communication, let's start with listening. Right? I actually have what I call my 3-to-1 ratio. And this is just normal conversation, but it translates really nicely. It's a really beautiful bridge going from just conversation with anyone, specifically a woman or someone a little bit more in their feminine, or maybe a little less, maybe not feeling like they have as much charisma or confidence as you. We can bridge from this space to the space of wanting to create a more intimate connection. So my 3-to-1 ratio is ask 3 questions and then share one thing about yourself that's related to that. And then close that by asking the first question in the next set of 3. So 3 questions or 3 pieces of information that you can derive or get from them, 3 perspectives, 3 ideas, and then share something that makes sense or connects in or supports what they're saying about you or your perspective, and then tie it back into them. Because what this does is it immediately sends the message to the other person that if you're showing more interest, 3 times as much interest in them as you're sharing about yourself, it says that they matter. And all of a sudden they feel really connected to you. And I've had people walk away from me when all I did was listen and ask a few questions, and they would literally say, "This is the best conversation I've ever had." I would just smile and say, "I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. It's because I didn't talk much, I just listened." And the kinder, gentler man often, not always, but often is also a little more quiet. And that makes it real easy for them to listen. If you really want somebody to feel cared about and nurtured, then ask questions about them, but they have to be relevant to the conversation that you're having. And it shouldn't feel like an interview question. Oh, well, let me ask the next question. PJ said 3 questions, and okay, let me ask the 3rd question. And then, okay, very robotic. I'm sharing my piece about me, and then I'm going to start again by asking another question. It has to flow, right? So you listen to what they're saying, and when they say something that's interesting, that sparks some sense of curiosity in you, or some sense of wonder about them or about their perspective, then you ask, well, tell me a little bit more about that. You said this, so I'm curious. How do you feel about this perspective? Right? Seek to really understand them. Seek to really go deep and understand them at an intimate level. Many times, one of the things that let me add a second, is when I meet somebody, I assume, one, that they're already my friend. So I just immediately assume that I already have a connection with this person. And if it's somebody that I might be romantically interested in, I assume that there's a connection already. So it opens the door for me to be a little bit flirty. But I also just assume a friendship. Often, like if I'm talking to a man, I assume a certain brotherhood, and I just immediately talk to them as if I've known them for a long time. And I'll ask questions. I won't be like, oh, well, what do you do for a living? I'll say something more like, so what do you like to do for fun? And then I listen to 1 or 2 or 3 things that they say. And if I can find some connection there, I then ride that connection. So I would say there are 2 things. 1, use the 3-to-1 ratio, but it must be based on curiosity. And secondly, assume a connection in a relationship and ask questions about them so that they start to share stories or interests. And when you find a common interest, talk with them about the common interest. Just start recycling the 3-to-1 principle, right? And so if you just assume there's a connection already, they'll follow your lead. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It's simple.
So let's try it here with you and me. Somebody's watching, and if you were to practice, and probably we could do it where you and I are just meeting, or we could also do it that we've known each other as long as we have.
Sure. So which I think there's a little bit different. So why don't we go with the we're just meeting? Okay. And is this a meeting at a party and somebody introduces us? Or is this me just like, oh, I'm being social? Or is this me that I'm attracted to you and want to initiate some kind of, I knew that's what it would be.
Yeah, the guy's attracted to a woman. And so let's help him into this. Go ahead.
Okay. So the first thing I would do is, let me tell you, there's a step 1 and a step 2. Okay. Step 1 has to be, especially for the kinder, gentler man, is you have to get out of your head. Okay. And not think about like, well, what if she doesn't like me? What if I say something that's embarrassing? What if she denies me? What if like, don't do that. Shift into your heart, settle down, feel the physical chest. And once you're feeling your physical chest, then feel the energy inside of your chest. And not only that, once you feel the physical chest and you can feel a little bit of sort of energy inside of your chest, maybe it's your heart, maybe there's some other kind of energy in there, then let that sink just another inch or 2. Just let it sort of settle down. Once it settles down, there'll be a sense of confidence in you. Then you can walk up to the person and listen. You can't be eyeing them all night. Be like, oh, I want to talk to her. Too late, right? When you see her, if you feel like you want to talk to them, even if you're kind of gentler, you don't have to be assertive, right? But you, or aggressive, certainly not aggressive, but you don't have to be assertive. You can still be kind and soft and gentle, right? Maybe even a little quieter, a little shyer, if that's how you roll. And the second thing is you have to identify what it is that you like about them so you can walk up and talk to them, or find something in the room that's common. So for me, if I was going to walk up on Nancy today, I would walk up and I would say, hey, I'm PJ. What's your name?
Nancy.
Nancy,
Hey.
it's really nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you too. Thanks for coming over.
Yeah, you're welcome. I wanted to come over and talk to you because I really like your style. Your hair has this wonderful, like, little bit of a wild vibe. Like it reminds me a little of the sort of the fun, wild party girls in the 80s. And I love the black jean jacket. It's really sexy. You look fantastic tonight.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Do you like fashion? Is that something you're interested in?
I do. I'm drawn to it. And I don't put a whole lot of effort or energy into it, but I do attend to it, and I appreciate putting stuff together, and sometimes together in a different sort of way. And I love the colors in your shirt. I like that shirt. Yeah, it's nice and fresh, and the colors are appealing to me. So, yeah,
I
so
actually wore it because I feel like it's a little bit softer. And I felt like it sort of represented my personality a little bit more in terms of that kindness. Can I ask you a question?
sure, sure.
Okay, you said that you like to put things together, right? You like fashion. So when you say put things together, are you talking about like colors? Are you talking about different kinds of styles to make your own style? Or are you talking about accessories? What is it that really appeals to you about
Hmm.
putting things together?
Well, let's see. Well, first I had a flash that my interview that I'm doing just for me, and a friend of mine, Wally, interviewed me for this series, which is going to follow today's interview. I talk about putting the space together before lovemaking, the boudoir, the
Mm,
bedroom. So I really enjoy creating space, and not necessarily expensive space, but just putting things together that I already have or somebody already has, and making them very appealing and feeling something that you want to, an ambiance that you want to create. I do like mixing clothes and coming up with my own style. And I have a lot of fun putting accessories together, and jewelry. And it's interesting because people must sense that because they give me jewelry. I mean, this pin was something someone gave me. It's a moon star. Um, I'm wearing a necklace that my sister gave me. Um, let's see, earrings. My daughter gave me the moon and the star earrings, and so I kind of, a lot of the jewelry I wear is it's not high end, but it's fun, and I like sort of mixing and putting that together. So does that answer your question?
it does. It's actually, there's a lot in what you said. I'm really curious to learn more about setting up the sort of the boudoir for the intimacy. But actually, I love that you're taking the different pieces that people have given to you and put them together. I just keep coming back to like this sort of Cyndi Lauper, Madonna 80s feel. I love that you're putting all these different things together. It's fun. It's a vibe that I can connect with. I remember connecting with in the 80s, and it feels fun to me. It really literally is pulling me back into that joy and that innocence and that craziness of the 80s. Do you remember what was one of your favorite things in the 80s?
Well, I really liked Madonna, and she used to sing and run from one side of the stage to the other, or move, or act. I mean, the amount of physicality that she had with her singing was amazing. Tina Turner, another one who also exuded energy and was more beautiful in the 80s than
Yeah.
she was even earlier in life. She was like gorgeous. She still is a beautiful soul. They both are. Um, so that's, yeah, that's some of my memories for that. Thank you. I consider that a compliment. So what I'm going to do is draw us like the slide to a close. And so now, if you're guiding men into something, words and how to present themselves to a longer term relationship.
Well, let's pause for 1 second. Let me break this down just a little bit, okay? Um, I think it's important for the gentleman to realize that Nancy and I have known each other for several years, and when you approach a woman, she may not always be as open and receptive as Nancy. Nancy made that super easy, right? And so she gave me lots of topics and all kinds of directions I could go. So it didn't necessarily um, exemplify for you that, yeah, but all women aren't as open and receptive, and make me actually work for it to create some attention and some draw. But the principle remains the same. You listen to what she's saying. You make a compliment. Try not to, don't compliment her necessarily on what she looks like. It's fine, but compliment something on the way she has put together her outfit, or if she's got her hair styled in a particular way, you can compliment on that. But how many times have women been complimented on, "Oh, you're so pretty"? Thanks. Didn't have anything to do with that. So
Well,
make
I agree
sure.
with that because I was going to say if you compliment a woman on the color of her eyes or her height or something that is sort of God given, it's like, well, that's nice, but but you were getting into something that I took decision making into. Yeah.
If you like color, for example, if you like fashion, if you like to really look at the way a woman dresses up, sometimes she'll use the color of lipstick that brings out a more subtle color in her outfit. And if you are able to recognize something like that, you can say, really nice choice of lipstick. I love how it matches this part of your dress. You notice that? And you're like, yeah, of course I noticed that. It's really beautiful. Real nice compliment with your skin tone, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not necessarily saying she's pretty, but I'm recognizing the things that are helping to enhance her beauty already. But then you don't stay with that. Then you move on to something else. You
I'm,
move
I'm
on to
I'm
something else. So you,
I'm experiencing you as it wasn't even an enhancement of something like beauty. You were looking at something that took thought and my sort of brain power and who I am to create that. You looked at an aspect that I was involved with and complemented my decision, my choosing, my choice, my influence. And I like those kind of compliments from men to their partners.
well, thank you. And there are three things that you said that I could have, like at least three things that I wanted to go down, and talk more about. The setting up the room, the boudoir for the intimacy. I thought that was interesting. Certainly, if you wanted to be flirty, you could go down that route. Or if you wanted to demonstrate that you have a level of maturity, you could go down that route and then become flirty later. We could have talked more about the individual pieces that she chose because there's a moon and a star, and a moon in her right ear and a star in her left ear. Yes. So I could have asked about that, and then she might have said, well, my last name is Moonstar. And I was like, oh, well, that's fascinating. So I could have gone with that. We could have talked more about when she talked about the energy of Madonna and the beauty of Tina Turner. We could have communicated about that. So listen to what she's saying and ask questions related to what she's saying. I really did more of a 2-to-1 ratio in this particular case, but that was because it sort of warranted a comment back. But then I followed it up with a question to continue the conversation. So it's important that we continue asking questions because we're not just there because she's attractive. We're there to see whether or not she's a nice fit also. Do I enjoy talking with her? Is she interested in the same things I'm interested in? If she's not, she doesn't have a really nice personality, I don't care what she looks like. She's not the right one for you. And so be really careful not to get enamored just by her beauty. Some men have a problem talking to women that are so beautiful, ridiculously beautiful, that they can't communicate because they're stuck in their head and what they want instead of settling down into their heart and then a little bit lower than their heart and just letting that energy settle. It can even settle down a few inches below the belly button, so you have this real sense of solidity or solidness. And when you're in that state, you're really grounded. From that grounding, you can then communicate a little bit more confidently with women. And the reason that you can do that is because you're able to listen. You're not stuck in your head. Your brain's like, oh, I got you so pretty. What's it going to be like to kiss her? I hope I can sleep with her. All these crazy things. Got to get out of your head and get into your body. And she'll feel that energy. When she
Yes.
feels that energy. You
And
said you wanted to do another role play?
well, we can, but this is so rich and also time-wise, we can move to something else. I thought you covered so many nice points. One, yes, women are great with that's a great way to open things with a woman. It's a great way to open things with anybody to ask questions. But I find women are just particularly good with questions. That's maybe something guys underestimate.
Yeah, and guys make a big mistake of talking too much, especially when they're nervous, instead of becoming curious. Let her talk 3 times as much as you do, but don't fail. Don't just interview her. Ask questions that you're genuinely curious about and practice remembering the answers. Because if the relationship goes longer, you don't want her to say, we talked about that. The first time I talked to you, I told you this, right? We want to make sure that she knows that you're interested enough that that information is being retained in your brain. And then ask questions that are interesting, but also that you know just enough about that you can ask more questions or converse or share something because there's some commonality there. And even if you're like, I have no clue what she's talking about, you can tell her, you can say, I have no clue what you're talking about. Can you back up and tell me a little bit more about this? Because I feel a little lost, but I don't want to be. I'm really interested to understand more about something I've never heard of. And she'll, oh yeah, of course, no, because she wants to know that you're interested. If you're genuinely interested, this is the big thing. This is one of the reasons that we're doing the second part, is because I don't want you to put on an air of being assertive and then come back and be quieter and softer and shy and then lose that. I know a friend of mine, who is amazing at being flirty and flirtatious and assertive and all of that, and sexy when it comes to texting and doing the messaging on dating apps. He's great at that. And then he meets them and he is nothing like that in person. He's shy, he's quiet, he's reserved, he's kind of got a, kind of a weak voice. And I'm like, bro, like you can't, that's not going to ever work. That's why he continues to be alone for so much of his life, because it's not true. He's not operating from that space of trueness. He could still be equally as gregarious in his text if he was a little more true to who he is, instead of turning on all of that pickup artist stuff, because he doesn't know how to carry that, and it's because it's not true to who he is.
So I wanted to mention something else with your questions. I want to piggyback on when you don't have a clue, or maybe you don't know something. I find it very refreshing when a man says, I'm sorry for asking you about this, but are you the one? Are you the psychiatrist that writes the scripts, or are you? A lot of people don't know what's the difference between a psychiatrist, psychologist. So, and more recently, I had questions about it, and then also some more experimental drugs that are being introduced. And he didn't understand, but I love that he was that open. And I told him, no, ask, just fine, ask me anything. So
I think that's great because you like talking about your industry, but we want to be careful that guys don't think, well, let me just talk to her about her job, because sometimes people just do a job. It's not really their passion, like with Nancy. Let me say a couple of other things too, real quick. I forgot them. When they come back, I will tell you, because I think they're important. Two examples. Just, you said you like it when men ask questions, and that you like it when they say, okay, psychologist, is that the one who can prescribe meds, or is that the other one? Right? And then you're into a conversation because it's demonstrating that they're interested. So two ways that you can, I'm a disabled man. I'm a dude in a wheelchair. So one time I saw this girl at a pool, and we were on vacation, and she was attractive. And the truth is, I've done this a lot. And I pull up in my chair and I stop, and she and her girlfriend stop talking. I wait for them to stop talking and look at me. And then I just simply say, is this seat taken? And they laugh, right? Because clearly I'm already in a wheelchair. And then I introduce myself and initiate conversation and dialogue with both of them, because I want them to both to understand, but just a little bit more flirty with the girl who I might be attracted to. So she knows, and maybe I tease her just a little bit more. Maybe I give her a little bit longer eye contact, but I make sure that the other one is equally engaged, and that I listen to both of them. A second thing is, if you don't know what to say, you're like, oh, PJ said I can't, like, look at her 3 times. I have to get up, I have to feel that sense in my chest, let it settle down even deeper, get up and walk over and speak to her. If you don't know what to say and you're walking across and you're like, I am just smitten by what she looks like and I have no clue what I'm going to say, you could walk up and just simply say, hi, my name is PJ, and I saw you from across the room. And I just wondered if a guy was going to come up and talk to you and captivate your attention. What would you have to talk about? What's interesting for you? And she's going to be like, I'm interested in the stars. And you can go, Cool. What part about stars? Do you like astrology or astronomy? Right? Because there's a difference. So just admitting that you don't know what to say and asking her, what should I talk to you about?
I was enamored by my imagination was that you were going to come over and you were going to say, I'm really taken by you and I don't know what to say. Just something that even says what's going on with you at the moment would be extremely connecting.
And wouldn't you say that's because I'm being vulnerable in that moment and being
And
authentic?
yeah, authentic. Being exactly. That's very captivating.
There's a beauty and an intimacy in tenderness, and being a man who has a sense of certain tenderness and is courageous enough to walk up to a woman that he's shy or nervous to talk to and just to say that. But you can't just leave it there and say, but I don't know what to talk about, because then she goes, am I supposed to help you? Like, if she's not as um,
Agi-
as advanced or gregarious or connected as Nancy, she might not know how to carry that. So you may have to follow it up with, so if I did want to pique your interest, what are some of your interests that I could talk about or I could ask you about? I don't think I'd say I'd talk. I think I'd say ask you about,
Hmm.
or what could I learn about you, or you could say, what's the one thing that you love the most about yourself? And it doesn't have to be physical. It can be about your personality. You might even say, not about your physicality, but about your personality.
Wow,
And
that's a big question for a woman. That's a really big question. That might.
what in big in what way? Tell me what way.
Well, I think all women have body dysmorphia to a degree. So all women are struggling with loving themselves and what would they say? Would they be bold enough? I mean, I would be tripped up right now to even speak. Well, what do I love about myself? That would take me a lot. And I've been a lifelong learner of self-development. So that'd be like, wow, I wonder what and depending
So
how comfortable I am, I could pick something. I could finally come to something, but it's quite a stumper. I would
for
think.
me, well, and yes, I would agree. For me, when I've used this, what I find is that if they get stumped, I can always be much more clear, and I can always say, about your personality, what's the one thing that you like about your personality? And they'll think, but they'll say something, and then I can go off that. I can coach them into being able to become more open and intimate, because now they're following my lead,
Mhm.
and we're not having a conversation about how the weather is outside or their job, right? We're immediately into something deep, because I'm assuming that I know you well enough to talk about intimate topics with you. And while that's not something that everyone feels like they can do, it's something that comes very natural for me, because I genuinely do care. I really do want to know who the person is. And if they feel that, they'll feel safe enough to be able to talk. We could role play it if you want,
Before,
now, or we can role play it later.
okay, let's try something. I've got a question. So let's reverse. For a guy, what's an equivalent question that you like? Do you think that question is equally good to open a guy up, or?
You mean if a man is being approached by someone?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure. I think that it depends on the kind of man, right? If we're talking about a man who might be emotionally intelligent, I think you could talk about personality, but you don't know. If
Mhm.
it's a man approaching another man, there may be some sense of connection to their femininity. So you might be able to talk about that emotion. If it's a woman approaching a man, and she's very feminine and he looks like he's maybe a little bit more rugged. I don't really want to say the word rugged, but a little more masculine, a little more
Guy.
yeah, a little more guy-like, hits the gym, in pretty decent shape. She could say, hey, as a woman, I just wanted to say I really love that fact that you work out and makes me feel safe. And I think that's really beautiful. I really respect that you take care of your body. So you can appreciate something about them in that particular way. So it depends again on whether it's the woman approaching a man and what is it that she wants. Has she seen him looking and he hasn't come up to say anything? So if that's the case, she can come up and say, hey, it's not always easy being a man, is it? And he might say, no, no, right? And she might say, well, I saw you looking at me a few times, and I just wanted to let you know that I'd like to talk to you. And that
Oh, I
would be
like that.
great if I could sit down.
I like that.
Because then what she's doing is helping him initiate that connection.
Mm. Yeah, I had sort of a hidden agenda.
Oh,
To me, I'm going to build on it, but I'm learning from you, so I love this. So if I were in the gym and I noticed him, I would be inclined to say, what do you love about this gym? Or what do you love the most about your workout? Because my experience of men is they're very producing, productive oriented, not as self-development oriented, and that they can return a richer verbalization of work. What do you love about the work that you do in this glorious Dodge City here? And that has produced a lot, but I was just curious. I was trying to figure out if you think men find that question as appealing as women do. I would not hypothesize that. I would hypothesize that's a deep question. That's a hard question, but it's more likely to prime the pump for a female, a woman, if you ask her, what do you love about yourself?
well, let me answer two pieces. Let me respond to two pieces. One, again, the kinder, gentler man, right? That we're really focusing a little bit more here on. If you walked across the room to me and asked me and just simply said, hi, I'm Nancy. And I'd say, hi, Nancy, I'm PJ. It's nice to meet you. And then, I could say something right away to help control the conversation. But if I don't, and you said, I just, wanted to come and chat with you and learn a little bit more about you. What are some things that you're interested in? I would say, wow, that's really fascinating. But because I'm emotionally intelligent, I would be able to say, well, I really love talking about spirituality. I'm fascinated by Buddhism, indigenous peoples around the world, cultures, food, music. I really like this kind of music. What do you think? What do you like? And if you were like, well, I like country, I'm like, oh, I like some country. Who do you like? And so I would help to carry that conversation, but that's me being a little more emotionally intelligent and wanting to make it also easy for her, because I also want that connection. But if you're in the gym and I'm pumping iron, I'm, in pretty good shape, and you come up to me and ask me what do I like about the gym, that feels a little like, I don't know, it's a place to work out. That seems weird. For me, that seems weird. But if you came up to me and said, hey, I noticed that you have a really defined tricep, and you make him look at your arm, you make him look at your body, you're right? Or you're talking about your tummy, like, but I can't get my tummy down to where it is, and you touch your tummy, so he looks at it, right? And you could just simply say, what are some, or could you teach me some of your strategies, is not the word I'm looking for, technique. What are some of the techniques that you use to get that definition? Or how do you keep your abs tight? So you can have him look at your body and touch that part of your body, and then ask for his advice. Men love to give advice. It makes us feel like we have value. So if you want to connect with a man, ask him for his opinion or his advice and his perspective, because it makes us feel like we have something that we can now give to you. And it's really important for men to feel as if they have something to be able to give to women, because there's a lot of other guys out there that could steal you away. So the more we feel like we have to give to you, the more likely the more we feel safe that you're going to stay with us.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. I'm picking up a lot of masculine energy that in the gym. I like the idea of being specific about how do you develop your abs like that, your triceps, you've got,
My calves, anything. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It felt very like masculine questions. And so I was just kind of moving in between the masculine and the feminine, and which questions would be geared towards who. And so it's just interesting to me. And so, yeah, so give us some more tips, because we're actually getting closer to time where I want to make sure we get other tips thrown in here for guys.
Okay. Sure. So let's just think generally about the more shyer, quieter, gentler guy. Um, and he sees a girl at a party, okay, versus at the bar. If you go to a party, for example, and you sit down and you talk to her, it's the same entry, right? The same intro. Hi, I'm PJ. Nice to meet you. And all the time people go, well, how do you know, Kate from this party? Oh, yeah, I work with Kate. It's sort of a boring opening, right? But what if instead I sit down and I say, hi, I'm PJ, what's your name? And you say, Nancy. And I say, Nancy, it's really nice to meet you. Pretty fun to be over at Kate and Charlie's. They're kind of crazy, silly, funny. They always crack me up. What would you say is your favorite thing about Kate and Charlie's relationship? And they might say, I really love how funny he is and how he makes her laugh. And I'm like, oh my God, I love that too. And then you could tell a story. Or you could be like, oh, what's one of your favorite stories about them? What's one time that you're hanging out with them? So now what you're doing is you're talking about, again, you're making a connection. You're finding a connection.
Mhm.
And then let's say you talk, there are two things to think about here. You're talking and the conversation is going really well. You can A or B, two things. You can A, keep talking and letting that connection stay strong. Or B, you can say, hey, it's really nice to talk to you. I'm going to chat with a few other people and I'll work my way back around to talk to you a little bit later. Because if you want to ask them out, you probably want to separate and come back and ask them out later. Or if things are going really well, you can say, hey, I'm really enjoying our conversation. What are you doing Friday night? And they might say, nothing. You can say, do you want to go grab dinner? And they'd say, sure. You say, oh, that would be great. I know this great little sushi place or whatever you're going to go for, and they might say, okay. And then, so that sort of wraps up the conversation. And then you can say, great, I'm really excited about it. Let's exchange numbers. I'm going to go get a drink. Do you want me to bring you something back? And they're like, no, I'm good. Or yeah, please, or whatever. I like the idea of instead saying like, hey, this conversation is going really well. And you can talk all night if you're at a party, because you're not stealing anybody away if you know that the flow is going. But if you also feel like the flow is really good and you're not sure where to take it from here, you can always say, hey, we want to walk with me over to the snack table? You want to go get some snacks? You want to go get a drink with me? Or can I bring you something back? And if they're like, oh, can you bring me back some chips, or can you bring me back a soda or whatever? You're like, sure, yeah, of course, no problem. What kind? Right? And you come back. When you come back, if they're talking to somebody, you can give them their drink and you can simply say, hey, it was really nice to talk to you. I'll come find you later. And look at them like, so they, in a way that they know that you want to come and talk to them later.
Mm.
Right? So it's a little, you look at like a second or two longer with a little bit of a smile, like, I'll come and find you later.
Nice,
You
nice.
give them their drink and then you walk away and let them do their thing. So you're not commandeering them all night.
Mm.
So I think that this is important, understanding that there's a difference between meeting somebody at a party where you can talk to them
Mhm.
and recognize that other people might want to come in. And there's a difference between that and maybe meeting somebody at a restaurant or during lunch or at a bar at night. But the most important piece in everything, no matter where you meet somebody, as a kind, gentle man, is you have to be in touch with your own heart, because you want them to feel that kindness and that gentleness and that truth of who you are. Don't try to put on any airs or anything like that. Just be true to who you are and honor and respect who they are, and honor and respect the fact that, how do I want to say it? That there is an intimacy being created um, at a deeper level where you're getting to know them um, differently than the average conversation at a party. And they want to talk more about themselves. It's still, they want to learn more about you. They want to ask questions. If you see that they want to be with you, this is a really good sign. If they don't want to be with you, you might just not be their type, or it might just not be an interesting conversation yet. But don't take that personally. Continue to stay true to who you are. And if for whatever reason they friend zone you right away, that's fine. Respect and appreciate the friend zone, because they might introduce you to somebody later. But here's one more piece that's really important. The kinder, gentler man. Let me back it up. If the assertive man is going to say exactly what he wants, and he's going to lead and guide that relationship in the way he wants. But not all women want to be led that way. Not all women want to be guided that way. Not all men feel comfortable being that assertive. So the kinder, gentler man is going to want to collaborate with the lady. And he's going to want to invite her. Hey, can I invite you? You don't have to say the word invite, but you can. You want to invite them places. The assertive man might say, come with me to the snack table, right? And even grab her hand and stand her up, right? A kinder, gentler man says, hey, I'm going to go to the snack table. You want to come with me? Or would you go with me at the snack table? So you're inviting, and where the assertive man might say something like, come over here and kiss me, right? And she's like, okay. A kinder, gentler man might touch her hand or her arm. When you touch something on a woman's body, after you touch it as a kinder, gentler man, like let's say you're touching her hand for the first time, touch it, but look at it as you're touching it, then look up at her in the eyes and make sure that it's okay. So this is sort of the collaboration piece. Like you're checking in as a kinder, gentler man, was this okay? Right? And then if you touch her cheek, it's the same thing. You look at that, and then you look at her in the eyes to make sure she's okay with it, right? You're just seeking that approval in a really tender way, that she feels honored and respected. You're not just looking at her body when you come back to her eyes. You're saying, I'm checking in with you, the person, the consciousness, who you really are, not just your body, making sure that this is okay, that we're sharing this kind of touch. And collaboration seems to be a much better, for lack of a better word, philosophy when working as a kinder, gentler man in any kind of relationship. How is that? Is that okay for some stuff?
That's a lot. Now, take it into a long-term relationship, and I also want to cover some men who have different physical limitations, how they might demonstrate that.
Sure. Okay, so longer-term relationships in what regards? Like we're in a marriage, or we're
married,
living together? Yeah.
both are living together or married, and it's a longer term. And he's interested in having sex. So how does he, guide him through this?
Yeah, for sure. Are you assuming that they haven't had intimacy yet?
No, they've been living together, but maybe they haven't had it for a while, and maybe he's listening to the series and he's hearing you talk. He's going, hey, I want to take a bigger step here.
Okay. They haven't had sex for a while. I'm going to assume just busy, okay, versus like he did something that made her upset, okay? So is that okay? You want me to assume something different?
Yeah, that's okay.
Because I think it's very situational how he might approach. So let's just assume that it's been several weeks, maybe a month or longer. They haven't been physically intimate, and he's a kinder, softer, gentler man. You want to plan a date, right? You want to nurture that. You want to get her away from the average scene. You want to change the state. You want to be playful and silly. And as you're playful and silly and she starts to open up, or you're deep and intimate where you start talking about the things that you love and appreciate about her, you want to start initiating physical contact. If you're being deeper, excuse me, if you're being a little bit deeper, and going a little more intimate with conversation, you want to touch a little bit more. But if you're being silly and playful, you might tease her a little and then do fun things where you touch her, where maybe you spin her around. But if you want her attention, you have to change the state. So let's say you're sitting on the couch or you're sitting at the restaurant and you're finishing up and you decide to stand up. As you stand up, you might stand up and grab her hand and say, stand up with me. And she stands up and she's like, what? So now you're leading, even though you're kinder and softer and gentle, you're still leading, right? Or you could say, would you stand up with me? Yeah, of course. And you touch her, in the face. You say, I love you and I miss you, and maybe you kiss her on the cheek and then work your way towards your ear over her neck, right? But she needs to know that you miss that intimacy. You don't have to say the words, but you can always ask, is it okay if I, can I touch you here? I miss your collarbones, and touch her collarbones, so you want to warm her up slowly. There's a girl that I know that I'm attracted to the undersides of her wrists. Seems weird, right? But she has this beautiful skin on the undersides of her wrists, and it just looks so delicate and feminine, and it just moves me. Like, I want to touch that. I want to feel it. So, you can touch that part of the woman that you find attractive and tell her what you find attractive about that. And then you move to another piece. She'll understand that you're leading her to a level of intimacy, but start with the little things. Get her out of the regular, mundane, same old, change the state. And then plan, am I going to be playful and fun? Am I going to be deep and intimate? Or am I going to do both? Maybe take her out somewhere and put on some music. Just go somewhere where you can see the stars, leave your car on or the music on, and then take her outside and dance, just so that she knows that you're giving something different than what you normally give. Because intimacy is different than the regular everyday. So you have to change. Let me not use the word change. You want to transform, okay? Because change is inevitable, but transformation is a choice. Change is going to happen whether you like it or not. Transformation is something that you intend to occur. And so if you're transforming the mood, she'll know in the direction that you're going, right? And you can, if at any point you can, if you feel like you need to, you can say, is this okay? I'd really love to make love with you tonight. Or is this okay if I take your shirt off as you're taking your shirt off? I wouldn't say, is it okay if I take your shirt off and then wait for her to say yes? I would probably start taking it off a little and then say, is it okay if I take your shirt off? Because it's already emotion. If she doesn't want you to do that, assuming again that you've been with her for some time, she's gonna maybe say, I don't want that. You can say, okay, you back up and you slow down, right? But don't be offended. If you're offended, if you're angry, if you're upset, you're not honoring her. She doesn't feel safe, and she's going to be a hard no, right? Versus I don't know, like, you haven't warmed me up enough yet.
Wow, a lot of sexiness there. I like it.
Thanks. And then you asked about somebody with a physical disability.
Yeah.
Can you give me some idea? Like, are they just meeting somebody? Are they also in a relationship? What's going on?
Okay, so let's say he's in a relationship and he's either a paraplegic or he has difficulty walking, moving his limbs, maybe even performing sex, but he's interested in having sex. How does he transition? What are some tips, ideas, words?
Well, again, how have they been? Are they dating? Are they in a long-term relationship? Are they
Let's say this is a long-term relationship.
Okay, long-term relationship.
Well, I don't know. Let's think about it because I think you did some of that in the last interview. Let's say that he has a handicapping situation and he's not ambulatory generally, and but he wants to approach a woman, or he's been dating her and he's working up now to how do we have the talk that we're interested in. I'm interested in talking about us having sex, the tips that he would cover, and then also what kind of assistance he would need to enlist from his partner so he could have sex?
Okay. Um, there's so many um, components to this, right? If you had a chance to watch the previous interview, I covered a little bit about this from a little more assertive standpoint. But again, assuming the kinder, gentler man in this particular case, um, and the your physical body from the waist down doesn't work in the same way. Um, it doesn't mean that you can't initiate some kind of intimacy. If you are concerned and you feel like, well, I need to tell her that I can't get an erection without some kind of stimulation or stimulus from somewhere else, right? You can always say, nibble my ear, because a lot of times if a paraplegic has his ear nibbled on or his neck nibbled on, then that stimulates something and then the erection can occur. And it may not just be that for that man, it may be something different, maybe touching the center of the chest, right? And so what we're looking at is a man saying what he needs and what he wants, but also making sure that she's comfortable and safe. So all the principles remain the same. Are you flirting with her? Are you saying, I really, how would I would say? Because I'm trying not to use the same idea, like where, I say, come here and take off your shirt, the same things that I did in the more assertive position. What I might do is I might invite her to sit on my lap, and I might just simply say, hey, let's go to the bedroom. And she's like, okay. Or if she says, why, you can just smile and say, because I'd like to take our relationship to the next level, and you can lead her that way. Or if you need some help, you can say, come on, it'll be okay. We'll only, we'll make this sweet, and we'll go with the pace that feels comfortable for you, right? And if you're worried that, yeah, but I need to tell her about the fact that I can't get an erection, or that I have a leg bag, you can simply say, hey, as you're getting intimate, you can say, I just wanted to let you know that my erection doesn't come as naturally and as easily as other men because of the disability. But if you nibble on my neck right here, yeah, right there, that'll help, and you could say, what do you like? And she can tell you, then you can do that for her. If you have a leg bag, for example, you might simply say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I have a leg bag. It's real easy to handle. All I need you to do is roll the external catheter off and then just detach the leg bag. We can just set it right here, on the floor, under the table or whatever, and if you don't make it a big deal, they won't make it a big deal. The problem is that kinder, gentler, softer men, especially with some kind of physical disability, don't see themselves as being masculine in the same way, and they see themselves as weaker, and they see themselves as less than. And when they see themselves in that particular way, then that comes out. But if you just say things that are very matter of fact, hey, I have a leg bag, and when you take my pants off, we're probably going to want to put the leg bag on the floor too. This is how you seal it. This is how you take it off, right? And you just tell her what needs to be done. As long as you're comfortable with it, she's going to be comfortable. But if you instead you say something like, hey, I'm kind of, I have a leg bag, and my penis doesn't get aroused as easily. So I don't know, like, I can tell you how to handle it. See, now you're not confident. And it turns her off and makes her feel like she has to take care of you versus, hey, this is the next step for us to be physically intimate, and so for a disabled man, it helps to lead a little bit more versus just collaborating. An able-bodied man can collaborate physically in intimacy. A disabled man might have to lead a little bit more, might have to be a little more assertive not assertive like I was in the last interview, right? But assertive in the way of just being direct and saying what needs to be done and how to handle it in the most simple terms. And if something goes awry, you just make a joke of it, or you just say, hey, look, that doesn't matter. You matter. We can fix that in a little bit. Don't worry about that, right? What matters to me right now is you. Come here, right? And you bring her close to you again. You constantly work on that intimacy by bringing her close, by saying what you need, by asking her what she likes, but don't ask for what she likes all the time. Just start and then pay attention to how her body is receptive. And if her body is responding well, great. If you do something and she's like, go back to it, or you could, if you're doing something and she's like, seems to be enjoying it, you can just look at her and smile, and wait for her to tell you to change. Don't ask her, is this right, in the middle of it, if she seems to be enjoying it, because that can be a mood killer. Also, there's if we back up a little bit, there's also a way of looking at a woman that lets her know that you're interested in maybe pursuing something a little deeper. If I'm looking at you, and I sort of cock my head a little, got a little bit of a smirk, and I'm looking at you in the eyes, but I'm not blinking. I'm not like I'm a creepy, like that, but I'm just staring, because if I blink, then I lose the connection. If I blink, it sort of shuts down that connection. But so think of it like I want to keep my eyes open, because I want every millisecond to be drinking in her beauty. And if I blink once, that's a millisecond that I've lost, right? And when you know that you've conveyed the message that you're interested in pursuing it, and you then have to shift it and change, not change away from that, but shift to the next step, that's when you can blink. And so it doesn't have to be long. It has to be intentional, and it has to come from your heart. And when you are a kinder, gentler, maybe a little quieter kind of guy, you can always say, this is good, right? And she's like, yeah. And you say, okay, I just want to make sure, and then you take her to the next step. If you're ever in a conversation, and this is the same principle, right? Take her to the next step. If you're ever in conversation and you feel like, oh, I don't have anything to say, immediately say, as soon as she's done talking, if you don't have any question, right, or any response, simply say, hey, let's get out of here, right? Change the space, change the location. So that's the same as what I was saying, is you take the next step because you want to keep motion, right? If there's a pause or a gap, the brain starts to turn on again, that can really kill it. So you want to keep in the flow, right? What's the next right step? What's the next step for her intimacy? What's the next step for your intimacy? What's the next step to get to the bedroom? And if she has to pick you up, like in my case, she may have to pick me up, make it so it's not just her lifting you and working for you, but make it intimate, where she lifts you. And then if she tries to let go, you say, wait a minute, come here, right? And bring her back into you, so she feels that connection. She's not just working for you, right? But she's working with you, collaborating again, collaborating.
Wow, this is very sexy, very nice, very nice. Wow. Well, it's going to be hard to bring us to a close, but I'm going to start bringing us down. Is there anything else that you want to throw out there or say before we close the interview?
I'm gonna close my eyes and let it come through me instead of from me. So give me just a moment.
Sure. I know that about you, and I cherish that you do that. You practice tuning in, tapping in, and receiving.
Yeah, because I want the message to come through me instead of from me. I want it to be a truth, in my opinion, that the universe wants the people listening to hear. So if you give me just one sec, it's right here. Here's the truth. Each and every one of the gentlemen listening to this interview matters. If you were a man who didn't care about your romantic partners, you wouldn't be on this.
Mm.
You're on this because it's called a guide to intimacy. And yes, let's talk about sex. And yes, the Holy Grail, right? But if you didn't really care about that kind of connection, you wouldn't be here. You'd be watching something on pickup artists versus something on intimacy and creating that connection. So don't cheat yourself by doubting yourself or thinking that you're not good enough, but instead tap into that, feel your physical chest, feel the energy inside of that center, let that settle a little, and let that be your truth. And then come from that, recognize that you matter as much as your partner, and that in that space of intimacy, the more you share, the more you listen so she can share, and the more you're courageous enough to share where you are, the deeper that connection will go. And you may just be one of those couples that are married for 50 or 60 years. And when somebody says, wow, that's amazing, what's the secret? You say something like, we've always honored ourselves and each other, versus, oh, communication, which is the standard conversation, right? Maybe it's one of those relationships where people say, wow, you guys are so good together. That's amazing. Like, how do you do it? And you just simply say, we collaborate.
Mm.
She's been my partner from the moment I met her.
Mm.
And I've never wanted to let her go. And even when it's scary to say the things that make me feel like I'm weak and not the man that I want to be for her, she's always held my heart because I've always been courageous enough to trust her to hold my heart. There's a real beauty in a man who walks up behind a woman and embraces her from behind. And she goes, because it's saying to her, babe, I've got your back. And then she can let go of all the intensity of protecting herself. And then it's a woman's job to come up and embrace a man from the front and hug him and basically say, if you're feeling vulnerable, I've got you. I'll protect you from any of the vulnerability or fear that anybody else might judge you for. I've got you. Your heart is in my heart.
Yeah. Well, I'm touched. That's so nice, so nice. And so what kind of free gift did I hear you're giving away? Is there, and maybe, let's hear about that.
So it's the same as on the last interview. The interview that you and I did, I think your very first A Man's Guide to Intimacy. I'm sharing both that interview, and apparently there's a bonus conversation. So I'm sharing both of those. I was going to transcribe them, but I thought I'd rather listen and watch my facial expressions and Nancy's facial expressions versus reading the transcript. So I've provided both of those. Additionally, I'm providing the masculinity meditation that I have that helps you to really tap into and feel grounded, but also be very open-hearted. Because to me, the sign of a really good man is a man that is grounded and strong, but also emotionally intelligent and open and vulnerable. And so it's my meditation that I've created and I've shared with so many men. And it massively changes whether you're able-bodied or disabled. It works. I sit down, I'm in a wheelchair, it still works. And it just helps the men to feel really grounded and have their heart be open. And it's a great way to start your day. And it's a great way to initiate the sense of confidence to walk across that room to say hello to the woman that's got your attention.
Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for the second interview, and also the first time I interviewed you, you gave 2 interviews. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Maybe you bring that out of me. I hope that's okay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, PJ. So I'm going to close.